Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Morning, my pleasure.
So, let's get your thoughts regarding this story. There have been, of course, anger and an outpour of outrage on social media against JAMB as the body and their response as well to the situation at hand. But what would you say this situation on the covers, or what does it reveal to us? What problems does it uncover?
I think the key thing is lack of care for the people, because we have to understand that the registrar, all those that are in charge, they are also parents as well. The security issues in the country is obvious. We all know all that is going on all around Nigeria. I mean, and the centers are far and they have to travel a very. So for 6:30, it means that most families, most children would be awake by 4 a.m. in the morning to get ready and to travel. And then how can they even put in their best in writing the exams if they have to sit down at 6:30 a.m. in the morning? So to me, it's really a lack of care for the citizens, lack of care for the children, because these are young adults, 16, 17, 18-year-olds setting out to start an exam. And then it's not done anywhere in the world. So I wonder, as a country, how do we make decisions? How do we show empathy and love for the citizens and for these young adults?
Now, Madam, some have argued that, when citizens have to take a flight, if they have to get on an international flight, they advise them to get to the airport 2 hours before takeoff. That this should also apply to JAMB. Do you think this argument holds water?
It's totally different. This is for international flights. For JAMB, I don't even understand why NAN had to be the one to take a stand that it should be at 9 o'clock in the morning. 9, 10 a.m. to start an exam, I don't think it's too bad or it's too far away. And if the children are seated at their centers by 8:30, I think that is fair enough. We can't compare this to international flights with rules, with takeoff, checking in issues, because by the time you check in your luggage, you get in, you have to walk to your to the flight stands. It's totally different. You can't equate exams with that. It's not done anywhere.
All right,
absolutely not.
I mean, you've been in the educational sector for quite a while now. Can you share with us the kind of impact this would have on the children, the young ones who are prepared? Possibly they've spent time having the mock exams, of which we hear that some students did not end up even doing the mock exams, and some who did, the results were not out. But what impact would this have, especially going into the examination, having woken up as early as 4 a.m. just to meet up?
I think they would be given the least of their best at that time. 6:30 a.m. is too early for even 60. So even for us adults, we're a bit grudgy at that moment. You can't, their brains are not totally awake at 6:30 a.m. in the morning, and the rush from 4 in the morning. And also we should know that for students, the fact that they have an exam in the morning, even if it's 9, 10 a.m., they are tensed a day, the night before. So I'm thinking if they have to wake up at 4, they probably would not have slept because I have an exam. This is a determining factor for them, for their future careers. So JAMB is extremely important. I think the whole system for JAMB, UTME needs to be totally overhauled. We need to start looking at the blended scoring system in the country and not having just one day to determine your total future. I believe that we should understudy other systems, other countries out, and I think it's this rush system that is also giving room for all the malpractices as well going on with JAMB. I'm aware that some centers were also closed due to technical glitches, malpractices going on. 27 individuals as well were caught for impersonation. So it gives room for a lot of laxity here and there. 6:30 a.m. I mean, come on. Even the centers are not yet ready. I'm sure the students will get to some centers and the centers are not even awake and all ready to take them aboard for the CBT system exams.
I mean, for a country where we're still, even with the elections, when they tell you the elections are ready and we're starting at a certain time, you get there and the materials are not even there. There's still logistics concerns. But I'll go back to what you just said about us understudying global best practices. You talked about the whole JAMB system being totally overhauled. There are those who argue that we should start to maybe explore situations that allow them take the exams from wherever they are, from their houses, and being able to make it digitally, fully digital. Are we ready for that here in Nigeria? And what sort of overhaul would you like to see with the system?
I think that we should have a scoring blended system, really. WAEC is doing a good job. If we could have WAEC in schools and students can have a local center close to them, we could do the same with JAMB. Have a center close to you. And for students in school, in SS3, they can take JAMB in schools. And if we use the blended scoring system, I mean, Singapore is doing that, Finland is doing that, the United Kingdom does that as well. If we could do that where your schoolwork is about 30% and JAMB is 70 or 60-40 as when we decide to embrace this, the school, they can sit in school and have their JAMB done rather than going to centers that, in fact, sometimes a week before, days before, they have to drill and find these special centers. So most schools could embrace that. Biometric systems could also help us with them sitting. So like the PSAT, for example, the College Board in the United States, we have students in Nigeria who sit for their PSAT exams right in Nigeria without having to go to the embassy or having to travel out of the country. And they do get their university admissions, placements right from the country. So why can't we do that and embrace that and have it done in schools or centers localized somewhere close to your home? So once you submit your JAMB form, you're within this particular local government. So let's say it's Etiosa, for example, then have it done within the boundaries of it, so they don't have to travel wide and far. I mean, look at that Esther traveling from Aja to Ekpe. That's far.
I mean, in response to that, JAMB has argued that they don't post students out of their area, that whatever area they put in the forms is where they post them to, and from the reports we've seen that there's even some monetary award for anyone who can prove that they registered in one location and then they were taken to another location, and they've given 48 hours from Saturday that they should send evidence to the FCCPC. But I think these are ongoing conversations. But how do you suggest that JAMB should have been able to address this? That's another thing that has come under criticism. Like you mentioned at the start of the conversation, you said the lack of care. Some would say their response is lacking of empathy. So how do you propose that they should have responded to this to maybe manage the outrage from Nigerians?
I think we have to get to the point as a country where we are not too big to apologize and say we goofed, we could have done things better. We could have looked into this. We could have looked at the timing, because I don't know the excuse for 6:30 a.m. I don't know what JAMB would come up with to say the reason why they have to start an exam at 6:30 a.m. So I think they should have just come to say, we goofed, we could have done it better, we would look into it and review and get back to children, have a better communication system with the students, and then restructure things. I think that would have made Nigerians feel better about this.
There are also incidents of missing kids and accidents, and JAMB hasn't said anything about it. Who do you think, in your opinion, should take responsibility for children harmed in the process of going for an examination so early in the morning?
I think the whole body should be responsible for it, because one of our priorities while making decisions is to have the care of the students, have the care of the people. And we should know the impact of the decisions that we make and the rippling effect it has on the nation. Because if we have set an exam for 6:30 a.m., we should know that students, some will be there for 5 a.m. in the morning, some will set out to be there for 4 a.m. in the morning, considering depending on how close they are to the location or not. So I would take the whole body, JAMB, UTME as a whole to be responsible, because when you make decisions, you have to sit down as a team as well to troubleshoot that decision, to think through and through and the rippling effect of that decision.
Well, permit me to also look at this from a different angle. JAMB in itself has been called to question many times. While it was called to defend a proposed budget of 1.1 billion naira just to feed its staff during the entire process of this matriculation examination, experts have called for a complete overhaul, saying that, I mean, we're spending so much money trying to keep our educational system running. I mean, you're in the UK, and I'm very certain that with your educational background, you're aware of how education has indeed improved in different climes, countries, you name them. Do you think the process of education that Nigeria is used today, the system, do you think it's really working? And what are your thoughts about having a complete change and makeover?
And that's why I talked about the need to overhaul the system totally. I'm currently in the UK, but I run a school in Lagos, Nigeria, so I'm shuttling between home and being in the UK at the same time. And running a school in Nigeria, like I said, I started with the word care, always looking at things from the position of caring and building things for posterity in the country. The system in Nigeria needs a total overhauling. We need responsible and I would say heads that look deeply into decisions that they are making about education, and to think about the rippling effects of those decisions that are being made. I use the UCAS system, for example. It's a blended scoring system for admissions, and every decision that is being taken about being taken is well thought through. You look at, so for example, if for schools admissions in the UK, and I'm even talking about even at the primary school level, it has to be a walking distance to your home. And I know we're doing that as well with the public sector, with the schools, and we can apply this consciously. I mean, the system just needs constantly and consistently to be reviewed over and over. And one of the things I say will work for Nigeria is when we begin to have a system where everyone in government has to have their children school in the country, have to have their children have to sit for the JAMB exams. I believe that at that point we will be more considerate, because we know that my little toddler at home tomorrow morning is going for JAMB. And I think at that point we begin to personalize the effect of the decisions that we make. So until we begin to review this, where, for example, in the UK, if you had a particular borough, for example, everything, the medicals, your education, your children's education is all within that borough. So you can't you can't live in Koshofe. You can't be the chairman of a Koshofe local government and live in Etiosa. It's not possible. You will have to have your children's school within that. I think until we begin to do that, we are going to be far away from the decisions that we'll make, and we're going to be far away from the rippling effects of that decision. And so I think that is the major difference between maybe the UK, Singapore, Finland, and everything, because you find out that those making these decisions are their children sitting for JAMB exams. If they are sitting for JAMB exams, I'm sure they would not make they won't set the timing for 6:30 a.m. It's not possible as a parent. You won't have your child setting out, leaving the house at 5 a.m., 5:30 for an exam at 6:30 a.m. It's not possible. And I think that is where we have the disconnect.
All right. Thank you very much for sharing that. I just also want to go back to the CBT, the computer-based testing model. I know you've talked about a system overhaul and that we should be able to create systems in which the schools, the secondary schools are able to then host these exams. Do you think that if we're doing this, we're still going to merge it with what is currently existing, that is a computer-based testing model, or is this something that we should maybe completely do away with?
It's the CBT is beautiful, it's fantastic. Unfortunately, there is a huge digital divide in Nigeria. So you will find my school will be able to embrace the CBT because our students will be able to see it. But then the public school down the road, the community school down the road might not have enough systems in place for the students to be able to sit for the exam. So we have to either, I mean, it needs a total overall, really, because if we have to embrace the CBT, we have to be able to have centers where students, which is probably why JAMB has had to take on board different centers, and then the accreditations of those centers have been issued as well. We have to put into cognizance issue of power. Do all the schools have all the right powers to be able to power through the exam? Because with CBT, for example, in my school, we can't rely on PHC, and we have to use our own private, we have to use the generators to power that all through so that it doesn't go off and the student having to start again. So all this have to be put into consideration. So if our budget has allowed 1.1 billion for feeding, then we can as well invest that money for proper centers, well-equipped centers in each state, putting in regional variances into play, and then equip them better. So I think it's also mismanagement of funds, and if the funds are properly well aligned, then we don't need to do away with it because it makes things better. In fact, ideally, if this is well thought through and well planned and well invested in, it's the best. We could also have biometrics and all of that in place, and this will do away with issues of malpractices, impersonations, and even children can sit at home and have the exams done.
Right. Let's talk again before we wrap up the conversation about the credibility of JAMB as a system for examining students before they get into the university. Do you perceive that this should still be the most important metric or yardstick for determining how students get into the university? When we were growing up, a number of us had to write JAMB. We had a certain cutoff. At some point, introduced the post-UTME. So if you don't make the cutoff, you're not getting into school. Should we maybe revisit the way that we accept students into the university? Or would you say that JAMB as an exam, the UTME as an exam, is actually 100% credible way for determining the preparedness of students to get into the university?
Absolutely not. And it's one of the reasons why I talked about this blended scoring system. I think that would work better than using just a day to determine the future of our young adults. The blended scoring system gives at least 30% or 40% to work done in school. So with UCAS, for example, you can over the years acquire your UCAS points, and this is the United Kingdom admission system. You can take time. I remember my daughter having to do some EPQs because I need it for my UCAS point. I need them for my UCAS point. They did extra things at work in the secondary school time just to acquire. So you can acquire UTME points while you are in school. You could, so right from GS1 to SS3, you could start preparing and getting ready for your university entrance examinations. I think that works better, and it could be 30%, 60% to 70% to JAMB, or 60-40. But I think that's a better system than just actually relying on just a day. I think that is not good enough. That needs to be looked into, definitely.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, and thanks for joining us. A very, very, say, fruitful conversation. Thanks, CEO Supreme Education Foundation School Mrs. Olubukola Ola-Adewuyi. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.